I'm Aaron.
And I'm Matthew. And in this training video, we're going to be discussing a pretty general style of beer, but we're going to be discussing fruit beer. Now, fruit beer can really be any style of beer that uses fruit as an additive and also as its main flavor focus. So this can include wheat beers that are fruited. It can include a brown ale that's fruited or a pale ale that's fruited. Really any sort of beer that really uses, whether it be blueberry or strawberry or raspberry, but some sort of fruit additive as its main flavor component. Now, today we're going to be actually trying one of Aaron's favorite beers. This is, why don't you go ahead and tell us about it, Aaron?
I'd love to, Matthew. This is Sea Dog Wild Blue. It's actually brewed by Sea Dog Brewing Company. They're owned by Shipyard. Mm-hmm. They originally are out of Maine, but now if you're in Florida, actually all of their Florida beers, if you get it on draft, are brewed in Clearwater outside of Tampa. So it's not really a local beer if you're in Florida, but if it's packaged, it's still coming from Maine. But all of our drafts now come from Florida. This one is actually, like Matthew said, a fruit beer. Can be any number of different types of base beers. This one's actually going to be a wheat beer, so it's a fruited wheat beer. However, this one is filtered. So it's not a traditional wheat beer in the sense where it's cloudy like a German Hefeweizen. This one is filtered, which we'll see. So it's kind of different. All right, let's go ahead and get one open. They have one of the most recognizable faces on a label. This dog, I'm sure the dog has a name, and I should have found out what the name of this dog was and the story of the dog. But he's famous all over now. Now, like I said, this is a wheat beer, and it's not nearly as cloudy as you would expect a wheat beer to be. As a matter of fact, when I get this up to the light, it's not cloudy at all. This is perfectly filtered. We call that sterile filtration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really nice polish. It's got a really nice shine to it. And then pretty standard kind of golden color, which you would expect from most wheat beers. Some will tend to have a little bit more of a whitish hue to them when they're unfiltered. That comes from the yeast remaining in it. But this is just a pretty brilliantly shiny golden color.
Yep, it was good head formation. The head doesn't retain too much right now, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And we'll go ahead and smell it because I can tell you that as soon as you pop the cap off of these, you get that fruited blueberry right at the front. So
yeah, it's just really big blueberry. There's a lot of like a breadiness to it as well. I mean, really, it smells very, very similar to like a blueberry muffin.
Yeah, there's no mistaking. There's no mistaking what this beer is. And we should also add that this beer is often fruited, so we'll put some extra blueberries in there too.
Sure. Yep. Anytime it's served on draft, it'll come with actually blueberries in the beer. It's the only beer that we serve at Brass Tap that automatically comes with fruit.
Yeah, and it looks pretty cool with the blueberries in. The blueberries are kind of floating up and down depending on the carbonation level. Yeah, just straight blueberry.
This beer has very little in common aroma-wise with what you would normally consider to be beer-like qualities.
Yeah.
It definitely has some bread to it, but there's so much of that blueberry presence in it that it really has very little in common aroma-wise with your traditional style beers.
Yeah, and that's why it's classified really, beers like this they're classified as fruit beers, not as a wheat beer with fruit. Because foremost, it's a fruit beer.
Okay, all right, let's give it a taste.
All right. Blueberry pie all day long.
Yep.
Heavy on the blueberry pie. It's very, very sweet. It's very rounded. You're not getting any of those typical characteristics that we've been saying that are prevalent in a wheat beer. This really is something different altogether.
Sure. Yeah, it's got a lot of residual sweetness to it as well, and I'm not sure if that actually comes from the blueberries or if that's simply just a byproduct of some of the other brewing ingredients. But I mean, it's very pie-like. It's really nothing but blueberries with a little bit of like a bready base to it.
Yeah. Now, because of that, this is a very approachable beer for someone who's probably a little bit timid. on getting their feet wet with craft beer. Brass Tap, this is a popular beer, both on draft and in bottle. There's some other fruit variants that we'll go over in a little bit. They're all popular at Brass Tap. Sea Dog Blue is the most popular. It might have been the first one that they did. It's definitely their most popular company-wide. I am tasting a little bit. Sea Dog and Shipyard use a specific type of yeast, which I can, maybe it's because I know that's the yeast, but I can pick out. I definitely has that Sea Dog Shipyard taste to it. That comes from the type of yeast they use.
Yeah, there's a lot of breweries that use basically a proprietary yeast they use in the majority of the beers that certain brewery will produce, which gives them sometimes like a similar underpinning of flavor as well, which I think is what you're picking up on. Certain Rogue, for instance, uses Pac-Man yeast. It's a very famous yeast strain, and a lot of their beers have that same type of similar flavor from beer to beer, and I think I agree that's what we're getting here.
Now it's a wide style, so the ABV range is gonna vary wildly in some cases. This one is a very, very sessionable beer. I think it's below 5. I want to say it's 4.6%. So it's a very sessionable beer. You can have a lot of. It's a great daytime drinking beer. It's a great golf course beer.
Sure. It also works very, very well, and we usually sell a ton of it on ladies' nights as well. It's one of those beers that will come through on ladies' nights. It's got, like we said, it really has very little in common with the traditional flavors of beer, so that makes it approachable, particularly for somebody that may be more of a wine drinker or maybe more of a mixed drinker, liquor drinker, because it does have that big fruitiness that you get from a lot of your cocktail mixers.
Or even a cider drinker. A lot of cider drinkers will like Sea Dog Blue and vice versa. They've got a lot in common. Actually, I would think that this, taste-wise, this has more in common, I think, with cider than it does with the wheat beer.
Sure, I would agree with that. Yeah. Should be an easy sell for y'all, and always something that we'll have around.
Yeah, and if it's on draft, don't forget the blueberries.
Cheers.
Cheers.